Senator McCain.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And obviously, we are here today to determine how the Department of Defense can most effectively reduce instances of sexual assault and ensure that offenders are held accountable. Our witnesses have characterized the problem as a crisis and a cancer that threatens the very fabric of our military, and I couldn't agree more. At its core, this is an issue of defending basic human rights, but it's also a long-term threat to the strength of our military, and we have to ask ourselves, if left uncorrected, what impact will this problem have on recruitment and retention of qualified men and women? Just last night, a woman came to me and said her daughter wanted to join in the military, and could I give my unqualified support for her doing so? I could not. I cannot overstate my disgust and disappointment over the continued reports of sexual misconduct in our military. We've been talking about the issue for years, and talk is insufficient. I would remind my colleagues that after the Vietnam War, at the end of the Vietnam War, and in the aftermath, there was breakdowns in discipline, there was race riots on aircraft carriers, there was instances of fragging, and there are tremendous racial unrest and tensions within our military. We addressed the issue. And now I believe the military is our most effective equal opportunity employer. We must do that in the case of this crisis that we're facing now. Today, we all agree that action has to be taken, and I hope that today's hearing will build on that consensus. General Dempsey, as you stated in your prepared statement, you have endorsed Secretary Hagel's proposed amendments to Article 60. I'm sure that my members of the panel are familiar with it. They would prohibit a convening authority from setting aside the findings of a court-martial except for a narrow group of qualified offenses, and require a convening authority to explain any sentence reduction in writing. Is there anyone in the panel that disagrees with Secretary Hagel's recommendation? Thank you. General Dempsey, do the services allow individuals with a history of sex-related crimes to enlist or receive a commission to serve?
There are currently, in my judgment, Senator, inadequate protections for precluding that from happening. So a sex offender could, in fact, find their way into the armed forces of the United States. And in fact, there's cases where a conviction wouldn't automatically result in a discharge.
Obviously, we have to fix that. You would agree?
Absolutely.
General Odierno, in your prepared testimony, you expressed your support for this proposal, but stated you need to, quote, consider several technical amendments to ensure the UCMJ functions properly in practice. Would you submit for the record those, quote, technical changes that you would like to see? It's important for our committee to understand the extent which commanders are following the advice of legal counsel in making disposition determinations. My understanding is that in an overwhelming number of cases in each service, commanders following the advice of legal counsel. Could the service chiefs or judge advocates tell us how many cases did a commanding officer go against the advice of a staff judge advocate in executing their convening authority? Do you know, General? Real
Senator,
quick.
I don't. I'm going to let General Larry talk if he has numbers. But in 43 years, I can't think of a single instance where my judge advocate, and all the times I've been in command and in a convening authority, I can't think of a single instance where my judge advocate came to me and said, we recommend that you prosecute these cases, and I didn't do it. On the other hand, I can think of many where he said, we don't have enough evidence, don't prosecute them, and I did anyway.
General.
Something related to this is that I think sometimes people are led to believe that all of a sudden commanders are doing these cases with no experience. From the time you come in the Army or any service as a as a commissioned officer, as a platoon leader, company commander,
I'd
battalion commander.
appreciate, I
Okay,
apologize.
so yes, so in every case, I agree totally with General Amos, is that in every case, in my own experience, that when I said we had enough evidence to go, we did, and many times, when we didn't think we had enough, we went to a court-martial anyhow because of the importance of the case.
Admiral,
We
I'm sorry
scrubbed,
for the request for a short answer. I've only got 30
we scrubbed every case for the last year for sure, and no, there were no discontinuities. The advice was taken, legal advice was taken by the commander.
General.
Senator, we reviewed every case for every trial for the last 3 years. There were 2,511 cases. In 22 of those, the initial disposition authority did not agree with the recommendation from the JAG. The recommendation was forwarded in 10 of those cases to a higher convening authority who agreed with the JAG's recommendation, and that was the action that was taken. In 12 of the 2,511 cases, the commander made a different decision than what his JAG recommended, so less than 1% of the time.
Admiral Durenzi, you've had a long experience with these issues. Is the problem better, worse, or the same?
Sir, do you mean sexual assault issues in
Yes.
general? I think the problem is improving. I was a junior officer during Tailhook, and I can tell you that I do not recall the training efforts, the response, the prevention, the attention on our ability to prosecute offenders, reaching down from leadership to the deck plate level at that time. I would tell you that in the time since and now, I see a difference. I see a difference in the leadership. I see a difference in how the judge advocates are trained to respond and support, and I see a tremendous difference in the prevention and response efforts.
But you would agree that improvements need to be made.
Yes, sir.
And we'd be very interested in your support or lack of support of some of the recommendations that we are considering.
Yes, sir. And I'd be happy to provide those for the record.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.